You think death is a switch. 1 second, you're you. The next second, you're gone. That's not what actually happens. Your self doesn't end all at once. It dissolves in pieces, and some pieces go before others dot. So here's the real question. If your brain doesn't shut off all at once, then for some period of time after your heart stops, something that might still be you is still in there. Doing what? Thinking what? And when exactly does you actually end? Let's start with the body, because the body goes first. When your heart stops, blood stops moving, oxygen stops arriving, and your organs don't all die on the same clock. Your heart can be revived minutes after it stops. Your skin cells can survive for hours. Your hair and nails appear to keep growing for a short while after, not because they're alive in any meaningful sense, but because the tissue around them dehydrates and pulls back, exposing more of what was already there. But your brain is different. Your brain is the most demanding organ you have, and it's also the one everyone assumes goes first. It doesn't. In a study published in 2023, neuroscientist Jimo Borjigin at the University of Michigan monitored brain activity in patients as they were taken off life support. The expectation was a quiet fade, electrical activity slowly winding down like a phone losing battery. That's not what her team found. In 2 of the patients, within seconds of the heart stopping, there was a massive surge of gamma wave activity, the same type of brainwave associated with conscious thought, memory retrieval, and focused awareness. It was concentrated in a region linked to perception and self-location in space. Borjigin called the spike crazy high, her own words, not a flat line, a flare. So if the brain isn't shutting off, what is it doing? Here's where it gets specific. Neurons don't all die together because they don't all need the same amount of oxygen to survive. The brainstem, the ancient core that controls breathing and heart rate, can survive longer with less oxygen than the cerebral cortex, the part responsible for conscious thought, memory, and the sense of being you. Which means there's a window, maybe minutes, maybe longer in rare cases, where the parts of your brain that make decisions and form identity have gone dark, but more primitive parts of you are still technically running. You're not you in that window, not the way you think of yourself, but you're not nothing either. In 2013, researchers at the University of Michigan ran a related experiment on animal subjects, recording brain activity after cardiac arrest. They found a similar spike, this time even more pronounced than activity during normal waking consciousness. For a brief window, the dying brain appeared to be more electrically active than the living one. Dr. Sam Parnia, a resuscitation researcher at New York University, has spent over 2 decades studying what people experience during this window. His AWARE studies, the largest of their kind, surveyed cardiac arrest survivors across 25 hospitals. Roughly 40% reported some perception of awareness during the period their hearts weren't beating. About 20% described structured thoughts, clear memories, a sense of time passing. And here's the detail that nobody can fully explain. Many of them described the same emotional tone, not fear, not panic, calm. Some describe it as the most peaceful experience of their life, happening during the exact minutes their body was clinically dead. But here's the strange part. If the parts of your brain that handle conscious thought have already lost oxygen, how is anyone forming a memory of feeling peaceful at all? This is where the data stops giving clean answers and the stories take over. In multiple documented cases, patients who were resuscitated described a specific, recurring kind of memory during this period, not their greatest achievements. Small, oddly specific moments. One case involved a man who, after being revived, described seeing a white cat on a staircase in a building he had no memory of ever visiting. He told his mother about it out of confusion, expecting her to have no idea what he meant. She did. They had lived in that exact building, with that exact staircase, next to a neighbor who owned a white cat. He was 14 months old when they moved out, a memory with no conscious access point, surfacing in the minutes his brain was supposedly shutting down, which raises an uncomfortable possibility. What if the personality, the self, the version of you that makes decisions and tells stories about your life, isn't something your brain produces continuously? What if it's something your brain assembles, fresh, every single time you need it? And in your final minutes, with the usual filters and inhibitions losing power, it assembles something different, older, stranger, less edited. Of course, mainstream neuroscience has a less mystical explanation, and it's worth taking seriously. The gamma wave surge could simply be the brain's wiring short-circuiting as oxygen disappears, neurons firing in their final desperate burst before failing completely. The same way a light bulb sometimes flares brighter right before it burns out. The sense of calm could be a flood of naturally occurring chemicals, the brain's own painkillers, released in a final defensive response to trauma. The vivid memories could be the temporal lobe, the seat of memory, getting hit by that same electrical surge and firing off old, deeply stored images almost at random. Under this explanation, there's no you experiencing anything in those final minutes. There's just biology, doing what biology does when it's dying, and our pattern-seeking minds turning the noise into a story afterward. Both explanations can't be fully proven, and that's the uncomfortable part neuroscience won't say out loud. Nobody can ask the brain what it experienced and get a reliable answer back, because the only people who could answer were either revived, in which case they didn't actually finish dying, or they weren't, in which case there's no one left to ask. So back to the real question. When does personality actually end? Not when your heart stops. The data is clear on that. Not even when your higher brain functions go dark, because something, somewhere, is still generating activity that looks a lot like thought. The honest answer is that there isn't a single moment. There's a window, somewhere between minutes and hours, where the version of you that exists is becoming less and less complete, a fading signal rather than a flipped switch, until eventually there's nothing left to interpret it at all. You spend your whole life assuming you're one continuous thing, start to finish, a single, uninterrupted self. But the evidence suggests your personality was never one solid object to begin with. It was always something your brain was actively building, moment to moment, out of electricity and oxygen and old memories pulled forward when needed. And in your final minutes, when the building stops, it doesn't collapse all at once. It just slowly stops being rebuilt, piece by piece, room by room, until whatever was in there runs out of power to keep assembling itself. And for the first time in your entire life, nothing shows up to answer when your name is called.